of Babylon, this great and awesome city of Babylon, has just simply pleasured itself off of the resources of the world. Some people believe that this means Babylon, that city that once existed in modern-day Iraq, is going to be rebuilt. Some people believe that the Roman Empire is going to be rebuilt. I don't care about making predictions about the future. I just care about what this is talking about now. And listen to this. In our world today, the closest thing that our world has today, and in fact, the closest thing to Babylon that our world has ever seen, economically speaking, is the United States. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to speak against our country. I'm trying to speak against a value system that has grown very prevalent among us. To prove this point, I did a little bit of research this week and I found some amazing statistics. And I have sources for these that I would like to share with you guys if you want to know some of the sources and where I found these things. But here are just some things I found. If the Chinese people were to consume resources at a level that Americans do now, grain consumption per person there would climb from about 600 pounds today to 2,000 pounds needed to sustain a typical Western diet. This would equate to 1,352 million tons of grain, equal to 2/3 of all the grain harvested in the world in 2004, if China acted like us. On average, one American consumes as much energy as 2 Japanese, 6 Mexicans, 13 Chinese, 31 Indians, 128 Bangladeshis, 307 Tanzanians, and 370 Ethiopians. Americans eat 815 billion calories of food every day. That's about 3,300 per person. That's roughly 200 billion more than needed, enough to feed 80 million people at 2,500 calories every day. If underdeveloped countries consumed at the same rate as the U.S., 4 complete planets the size of the Earth would be required. People who think that they have a right to such a life are quite mistaken. 1/3 of the world's fish catch and more than 1/3 of the world's total grain output is fed to livestock, a lot of that going to feed American fast food diets. It takes an average of 25 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of wheat in modern Western farming systems. It takes 5,214 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef. And just to show the scope of our wastefulness as a society, I found a man who does pictures of the total number. He does pictures of statistics. In this picture, this is an actual photo mosaic made up of 140,000 images of soda cans. Aluminum soda cans. 140,000 soda cans represents the number of soda cans disposed of by people in the United States every 30 seconds. For a scale model, the actual print of this is hanging in a museum, and that's how tall an average person would stand next to it. And then just for a little bit more scale, to prove that, yeah, they're actually cans, that's the umbrella. You can see the blue of the umbrella that the girl was holding and the red outlining the umbrella. Just to prove my point a little bit further, here is a table. Priorities globally and how much money is spent on these priorities. In the United States, $8 billion is spent annually on cosmetics. $11 billion in Europe are spent annually on ice cream. Europe and U.S. combined, $12 billion is spent on perfume. U.S. and Europe combined, $17 billion is spent on pet food. This next table shocked me because it says, what would it cost us to provide basic services to the entire globe? Services like fresh water, education. What would it cost us to provide those things to the entire world, and how do they compare to our current consumption of cosmetics? Remember, cosmetics is 8, pet foods is 17. to provide universal education for every human on the planet would be $6 billion annually. To provide water and sanitation would be $9 billion. To provide health and nutrition, $13 billion. If just the United States spent half as much as we currently spend on cosmetics, we could make a significant dent in providing fresh water to the poorest people in the world. Why do I bring that up? I had a seminary professor, grad school professor named Danny Carroll, and he grew up, part of his growing up years were spent in Guatemala. He also spent some time as a missionary there, I believe, in Guatemala. And when he came to America, he was utterly flabbergasted by this sight. He would see on supermarket shelves rows and rows of bananas. And it disgusted him. He made a vow to never eat a banana again. Why? Because when he was in Guatemala, he would see piles and piles of bananas next door to a shanty town where children were starving and dying. But they could not have the bananas because those bananas were being exported to the United States. And so when he got here and discovered that bananas here in our country were 35, 40 cents a pound, he was disgusted and decided never to eat another one again. I mention all that stuff simply to say this. I'm not speaking against our country. We are not Babylon for one very important reason. Babylon in Revelation is not just an economic superpower that is oppressing the rest of the world by its own desire for luxury. It is also a persecutor of Christians. And it kills Christians. And it is a martyring kind of state. We don't have that going on. But what we do have is we have a value system here in our country that is directly in line with the worst of all nations that ever will exist in history. Do you follow me on that? I don't know what to do about it, honestly. That's one of the things that kind of gets me angry because I am now living in this system. And I know that to live in this system, I need to have a house, and I need to have indoor plumbing, and I need to have a car, and I need to have cosmetics. Not the makeup stuff, but the hair stuff and the smell good stuff and all that stuff and some of that stuff. I need that stuff, right, in order for me to impress all of you. And if I ever can, but I need that stuff. And we live in a society that basically imposes that kind of luxuriousness